You are here because something within the unseen has already begun to move, not because you deliberately searched for it. Not because you logically concluded that now was the appropriate time to explore the quantum field or unravel its hidden architecture. You are here because the field initiated the movement first, and you have become refined enough, aware enough, sensitive enough to perceive that shift. This is not a video resting passively on a distant server, quietly waiting for attention or validation. This is a threshold, and thresholds are not available to everyone simultaneously. They do not broadcast themselves indiscriminately. They reveal themselves only when the internal frequency of the one approaching them harmonizes with the frequency of what exists beyond them. So let us begin with a truth that may unsettle the structure of how you perceive causality. You did not discover this moment. This moment discovered you. The quantum field does not function according to the simplistic chain of cause and effect that you were conditioned to accept. It does not sit idle, waiting for your action before it chooses to respond. It responds to your state of being. It responds to the coherence or incoherence of your inner environment long before you form a conscious intention. It reads the electromagnetic signature radiating from your heart. It registers the vibrational tone of your thoughts. And when those signals reach a certain precision, a certain clarity, a certain threshold of internal alignment, the field reorganizes itself around you. What you casually label as coincidence is the grammar of the field. What you interpret as synchronicity is the confirmation that your signal has been received. Most people spend their entire lives transmitting conflicting frequencies into the field. They desire one outcome, fear another, believe something entirely different, and then question why reality never fully shifts. They treat existence as if it were a negotiation. As if the universe were some bureaucratic authority requiring persuasion. But the field does not negotiate. It mirrors. It does not judge. It reflects. And in this very moment, it is reflecting you. The fact that you are reading these words means that somewhere within the invisible architecture of your consciousness, a decision has already occurred. Not the superficial decision to watch a video. A deeper decision. The decision to stop pretending you are unaware of what you already know. The decision to stop waiting for permission from the external world, to step into the version of yourself that has been patiently suspended in the quantum field, awaiting your readiness. Here is the truth most teachings avoid revealing. The quantum field is not neutral. It is not an indifferent background upon which your life randomly unfolds. It is alive. It is responsive. And it has been tracking you, not with judgment, not with criticism, but with exacting precision, since the moment you began questioning the smallness of the narrative you were living inside. You were taught that manifestation requires visualization, affirmations, inner work, followed by waiting, hoping, praying that the universe will eventually comply. But that framework is built upon an outdated interpretation of how consciousness and matter interrelate. It assumes separation. It assumes you exist here and what you desire exists somewhere else, and that the gap between you must somehow be bridged. The truth is more immediate, more intimate, infinitely more powerful. You are not separate from the quantum field. You are a localized expression of it. Every thought you generate sends ripples through its structure. Every emotion you embody imprints a pattern into its fabric. And when your internal state achieves coherence, when your mind, heart, and body are no longer contradicting each other, the field does not hesitate. It does not deliberate. It does not request confirmation. It responds instantly by collapsing probabilities that were once invisible into tangible experience. This is not mysticism detached from reality. This is physics. But it is a form of physics that demands you release the illusion that you are merely a passive observer of your life. You are not observing reality. You are authoring it, every moment, every breath. Every subtle choice to maintain coherence or to surrender back into doubt. And the quantum field holds no memory of who you were yesterday. It is not anchored to your past failures. It does not archive your mistakes. It does not require you to earn your worthiness. It asks only one question: what signal are you transmitting? What frequency are you embodying? When that frequency becomes clear, when you stop broadcasting static and begin broadcasting signal, the field reorganizes itself around you with such immediacy that it can feel as though reality itself has bent But reality has not bent. You have simply stopped bending yourself out of alignment with it. So here is the first invitation. Stop waiting for evidence that this works. Your presence here is the evidence. The field has already responded to something within you. Movement has already begun. Now the only question is whether you will meet it halfway or retreat back into the familiar comfort of doubt, convincing yourself that this was merely another interesting concept. Another fleeting surge of inspiration destined to dissolve once the ordinary world reasserts its structure. Because the ordinary world will reassert itself. It is engineered to do so. But you are no longer engineered to surrender to it. You are designed to sustain a frequency so unwavering, so internally coherent, that the field has no alternative but to respond. Not someday. Not eventually. But now. This video emerged because the quantum field responded, and it responded because you have become someone capable of holding the truth that is about to unfold. Can you sense it? That subtle shift in the atmosphere around you? That faint resonance beneath the surface of your thoughts? That is not anticipation, that is recognition. The field has been waiting for your arrival at this exact threshold. And now that you have arrived, everything recalibrates. Let us descend deeper into the mechanism itself. The quantum field does not think. It does not deliberate. It does not measure your worth against some cosmic metric. It does not evaluate your readiness according to divine bureaucracy. It simply matches, it mirrors, it reflects back the energetic architecture you are emitting, and it does so with such flawless fidelity that most individuals confuse it with fate, but it is not fate. It is feedback, and the moment you truly comprehend that, everything changes. Everything you believed you understood about manifestation, about transformation, about change itself begins to dissolve here, not slowly, not gently, but completely, replaced by something far more immediate and infinitely more powerful. You are conditioned to perceive reality as something that happens to you. You wake up, you go to work, you encounter resistance, you manage relationships, you strategize, you hope, you worry. And beneath the surface of all of it lives a quiet, persistent assumption that the world exists independently from you, that it runs according to laws you did not author and forces you cannot truly influence. But what if that assumption is the interference pattern? What if the belief in separation is the very distortion preventing you from experiencing the field's responsiveness? Because here is what the quantum field understands even when you forget. There is no boundary between observer and observed. There is no invisible line marking where you end and the world begins. You are not an isolated self navigating an external environment. You are a localized node of awareness within a unified field of potential. And that field is always listening, not listening with ears. Not listening with judgment, listening with resonance. When you experience fear, the field does not punish you. It organizes probabilities around the frequency of fear. When you embody gratitude, the field does not reward you. It organizes probabilities around the frequency of gratitude. It is neutral, it is exact, it is instantaneous. This is why affirmations alone fail. This is why vision boards alone fail. This is why surface-level positive thinking collapses under pressure, because the field does not respond to what you declare. It responds to what you embody, and what you embody is not defined by your vocabulary. It is defined by the coherence of your electromagnetic field, the alignment between your thoughts, your emotional state, and the autonomic regulation of your nervous system. You can repeat affirmations about abundance endlessly. But if your cells still store the imprint of scarcity, if your body remains braced for loss, if your heart is quietly preparing for disappointment, the field mirrors the bracing, not the affirmation. This is not cruelty. This is precision. The field is not denying you. It is delivering exactly what you are requesting at the level of your being, not the level of your desire. And this is where real transformation begins. Not when you learn to ask more effectively, but when you learn to become what you are asking for. The quantum field does not wait for readiness to be declared. It responds to readiness as an energetic condition. It responds to the signature of someone who has already stepped into the identity of what they seek, not as performance, not as manipulation, but as embodiment. You may have heard this concept before. You may have been told to be the change, to embody the frequency, but you were rarely shown what that actually feels like. It feels like this, a quiet, immovable knowing that the field is not separate from you, a realization that your inner state is not a private event occurring inside your skull. It is a broadcast signal extending into the architecture of reality itself. It collapses probabilities. It magnetizes conditions. It draws toward you the individuals, opportunities, and synchronicities aligned with the frequency you sustain. And when that frequency becomes clear, when there is no contradiction between thought, emotion, and belief, the field does not hesitate. It does not stall. It reorganizes instantly around you. This is not metaphor. This is measurable. Neuroscience has demonstrated it. Heart coherence research has demonstrated it. Quantum biology has demonstrated it. When brain and heart synchronize, when the nervous system enters coherence, the electromagnetic field emitted by your body becomes stronger, more ordered, more stable. And that organized field interacts with the quantum field in ways classical models struggle to explain, but that you can feel directly. You feel it when the exact resource you needed appears unexpectedly. You feel it when someone calls you the precise moment you were thinking of them. You feel it when obstacles dissolve, not because you battled them, but because you stopped energizing them with your focus. This is the architecture of response. This is the mechanics of the field. And once you perceive it, once you stop interpreting life as randomness and begin recognizing it as coherent feedback, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice that whenever you descend into fear, your external world contracts. Whenever you expand into trust, your world opens. Whenever you anchor into gratitude, doors appear where there were none, and you realize the field was never withholding. You were simply not transmitting the signal required for response. But now something has shifted. Now you understand that you are not waiting for the quantum field to acknowledge you. The quantum field has been waiting for you to acknowledge it. It has been communicating through synchronicities, through intuition, through those sudden, inexplicable certainties that something is about to change. This moment, this video, is not random. It is confirmation. You are not here accidentally. You are here because the field has already begun reorganizing itself around the frequency you are stepping into. And what you are stepping into is someone who no longer requests permission from the universe. Someone who generates coherence internally and witnesses reality rearrange accordingly. There is a moment in every authentic transformation when old logic collapses, not gradually, not through gentle persuasion, but suddenly, like a structure strained by invisible tension for years, finally releasing in a single instant. You are standing at the threshold of that collapse now. Because the quantum field does not reference your past, it does not measure how long you have been stuck. It does not calculate how many times you attempted and failed. It responds only to the signal you are transmitting in this moment. And in this moment, something within you is no longer willing to return to the old pattern. The old logic is breaking. The separation is dissolving. The interference is clearing. And what remains is coherence. What remains is alignment. What remains is a field responding in real time to who you are choosing to become. It does not matter how many times you have attempted and fallen short. It does not matter how deeply you internalize the story of your own limitations. The field does not review your history. It does not examine your resume. It does not require documented evidence of worthiness. It asks only one question: what are you broadcasting right now? And if what you are broadcasting is coherence, if your thoughts, your emotions, and your nervous system are unified rather than divided, the field collapses possibility into physical form with such speed that it can feel as though reality itself has fractured open. This is the collapse of separation. The instant you cease experiencing yourself as something apart from the field and begin recognizing yourself as the field, localized into a focused point of awareness that has always possessed the power to reorganize its own structure. You were conditioned to see yourself as fragmented, as a small, isolated self moving through a vast, indifferent universe. You were told that change requires effort, that transformation demands time, that you must earn entry into a better life by repeatedly proving your value. But the field does not function according to deserving, it functions according to resonance. And resonance is not earned, it is selected, it is embodied, it is sustained. When you enter absolute coherence, when there is no hidden doubt, no silent bracing, no unconscious belief that you are unworthy of what you desire, the field does not hesitate. It does not test you. It does not demand one final demonstration of commitment. It responds, instantly, completely. It collapses the probability wave into the version of reality that matches your frequency. This is not metaphysics as abstraction. This is metaphysics as physics. At the quantum scale, reality exists in superposition, multiple potentials coexisting simultaneously, awaiting observation to crystallize into a singular, tangible outcome. And you are the observer. Not passively, not helplessly. You are the observer whose presence, whose very state of being, determines which potential solidifies into lived experience. But here is what most teachings fail to articulate clearly. The observer is not separate from what is observed. You are not standing outside reality analyzing it from a distance. You are woven into its fabric. Your consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Matter responds to consciousness. And when your consciousness reaches a threshold of coherence, matter reorganizes. It has no alternative. This is how so-called miracles occur. Not because physical laws were suspended, but because someone entered a state of coherence so refined, so unwavering that the field had to respond, and what seemed impossible became inevitable. You have tasted this before, moments when everything aligned effortlessly, moments when the exact person appeared at the exact time, moments when solutions surfaced without strain, moments when it felt less like you were controlling life and more like you were dancing with it. Those were not random anomalies, they were states of coherence. Moments when you stopped attempting to bend reality through force, and instead became so internally aligned that reality met you without resistance. And what is unfolding now is the recognition that those experiences are not rare exceptions. They are the natural baseline of a coherent being. Struggle is not the default. Resistance is not the default. Pushing against an unyielding world is not the default. That is what occurs when you are internally fragmented, when thought conflicts with emotion, when desire conflicts with belief, when your body remains guarded against disappointment. But when you settle into coherence, when you cease dividing yourself across fear, doubt, and contradiction, the field responds with such immediacy that it feels as if the universe has been anticipating your arrival. And in truth it has, not waiting with impatience, not waiting with indifference. Waiting the way a resonant frequency waits for its harmonic counterpart, silently, invisibly, perfectly tuned to respond the moment clarity emerges. This is the dissolution of separation. The realization that you are not a victim of circumstance, not a passive receiver of fate, not a small self hoping to be noticed. You are the universe noticing itself. You are the field becoming aware of its own capacity to restructure. You are the observer and the observed, the question and the answer, the seeker and the source. And when this truth becomes embodied, not intellectually understood but vibrationally lived, everything reorganizes. Obstacles that appeared immovable dissolve. Paths that seemed sealed begin to open. People aligned with your evolved frequency emerge, as though summoned by an invisible broadcast. The life you once imagined stops existing as distant possibility and begins manifesting as present reality. Because the quantum field does not stall, it does not postpone. It does not require additional proof. It asks, are you coherent? And if the answer is yes, if you have stabilized the frequency of your desire without wavering, without retreating into doubt, without collapsing back into contradiction, the response is immediate. Not tomorrow, not next month, not after you accumulate enough inner work to deserve it. Now, this moment exists because the field responded. And it responded because you have become someone capable of holding what is being revealed. Separation was never real. The distance between who you are and who you can become was never real. The perceived gap between desire and manifestation was never real. It was always coherence. And now you stand ready to close that illusion entirely. So what unfolds from here? You have encountered a truth most will never consciously perceive. Not because it is concealed, but because they are not yet transmitting the signal required to receive it. You have seen that the quantum field is not abstract theory. It is a living, responsive architecture that reorganizes around the coherence of your being. You have remembered that you are not separate from reality but interwoven within it. and that your internal state is not private, it is a broadcast. A signal rippling into the field, collapsing probabilities, attracting synchronicities, reshaping the structure of your lived experience in real time. And now the question is not whether this is true. The question is whether you will live as if it is true, because knowledge without embodiment is just information. And information without integration is just noise. The quantum field does not respond to what you know, it responds to what you are. And what you are is determined not by the insights you have collected, but by the frequency you hold when no one is watching, when the inspiration fades, when the everyday world reasserts itself, when the old patterns knock on the door asking to be let back in. This is where most people lose it, not because they did not understand, but because they did not integrate. They have a moment of clarity, a breakthrough, a recognition, a glimpse of what is possible. And then they return to the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same nervous system state that created the reality they were trying to escape. And the field, being neutral, being precise, mirrors that return. It does not judge, it simply reflects, but you are not most people. You are here because something in you has already decided not to return. Not to the old frequency, not to the old identity, not to the version of yourself that waited for permission, that doubted, that hoped instead of knowing. You are here because you have become someone who is ready to hold a new frequency, and to hold it with such unwavering clarity that the field has no choice but to respond. So let us talk about what that actually looks like. Not in theory, not in abstraction, but in practice. Integration begins with a single radical choice: to stop outsourcing your sense of certainty to the external world. You have been conditioned to wait for reality to change before you allow yourself to feel differently, to wait for the job, the relationship, the breakthrough, the validation. And only then, once the evidence is in, to let yourself believe that you are worthy, that you are powerful, that you are not alone. But the field does not work that way. The field responds to the frequency you hold music before the evidence appears. It responds to the state of being that precedes the manifestation, not the state of being that follows it. This is the inversion. This is the key. You do not wait for reality to give you permission to feel whole. You become whole first, and then reality reorganizes itself to match. And becoming whole does not mean fixing everything. It does not mean transcending every wound, resolving every pattern, or becoming some perfect, polished version of yourself. It means becoming coherent. It means aligning your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system around a single clear signal. I am no longer waiting for the world to change. I am the change. And when you hold that signal, not as an affirmation, not as a hope, but as an embodied state, the field responds. It responds by collapsing the probabilities that were invisible to you when you were vibrating at the frequency of waiting. It responds by magnetizing the people, resources, and opportunities that match your new frequency. It responds by dissolving the obstacles that were only ever held in place by your belief in them. This is not magic. This is coherence, and coherence is a practice. It is the practice of catching yourself when you slip back into doubt and choosing in that moment to return to trust. It is the practice of noticing when your body braces for disappointment and choosing to soften, to open, to hold the frequency of already having what you desire. It is the practice of treating synchronicities not as coincidences, but as confirmations that the field is listening and responding. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until one day you realize that you are no longer trying to hold the frequency. You have become the frequency. And when that happens, the quantum field does not just respond occasionally. It responds constantly. It becomes a living feedback loop, confirming again and again that you are not separate from it, that you are not a passive observer of your life, but an active co-creator of it. This is the integration. This is the moment when the teaching stops being something you believe and starts being something you live. And if you feel music, this calling, if you recognize that this is not just another insight to file away, but an invitation to step into a fundamentally different relationship with reality, then there is more waiting for you. Not waiting in the sense of being withheld, but waiting in the sense of being already prepared, already aligned, already resonating at the frequency you are becoming. If this video found you, it is because the field has already begun to respond. And if the field has already begun to respond, then the next step is not far behind. It is not somewhere else. It is not dependent on you doing more, being more, proving more. It is here waiting for you to claim it. And the way you claim it is simple. You allow yourself to continue. You allow the journey to unfold. You allow the next layer of truth to reveal itself. Not because you are chasing it, but because you have become someone who can hold clear's throat it. If you feel that readiness, if you feel that quiet, unshakable knowing that there is more and that you are ready for it, then let this be the beginning, not the end. Subscribe. Not because I am asking you to, but because the field is asking you to, because the next step is already forming, and it will find you when you give yourself permission to be found. And if you are not ready, that is also perfect. The field does not judge, it simply waits, and when you are ready, truly ready, it will respond again. But if you are ready now, then there is nothing left to do but this. Trust the signal you are broadcasting. Trust the coherence you are building. Trust that the quantum field has already heard you, and that everything that follows is simply the field's way of showing you that you were never separate from it. You are the field is you. And together, you are collapsing impossibility into form.